Ever wondered how the United States became Israel's ultimate ally? I mean, we're talking about two countries separated by thousands of miles, with vastly different cultures and histories. Yet here we are, with the US consistently backing Israel on the world stage, providing billions in aid and generally treating them like that friend you let copy your homework in high school. The story behind this power-packed relationship is more complicated than you might think, full of political maneuvering, religious fervor, and enough geopolitical drama to make your head spin. So buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the often overlooked history of the US and Israel, and trust me, the truth might just shock you. To dive deeper into this fascinating history, hit that subscribe button, share with your friends, and tap the bell to stay updated. Your support means everything. Let's spread the knowledge. Picture this, 1948. The world is still reeling from the horrors of World War II, and in the midst of all that chaos, a new nation emerges, Israel. After centuries of displacement and persecution, Jewish people finally had a homeland of their own. You'd think the international community would be throwing a goddamn parade, right? Well, not quite. See, the creation of Israel was a messy affair, carved out of British-controlled Palestine, and let's just say not everyone was thrilled about it. The UN had this whole partition plan, dividing the land between Jews and Arabs. But it went about as well as you'd expect when you try to split a pizza with someone who only likes pepperoni and you're a vegetarian. Wars immediately broke out with neighboring Arab states none too keen on this whole Israel thing. And who could blame them? Imagine if Canada suddenly decided to declare independence and become New France, claiming a chunk of Maine in the process. You'd probably be a little miffed too, right? So, there's Israel, brand new, surrounded by enemies and feeling pretty lonely. Most of the world was hesitant to get involved, still grappling with the whole should we have let a genocide happen? Guilt trip. But there was one country, thousands of miles away, that decided to stick its neck out, the good old US of A. US support for Israel wasn't a given. It was a risky decision in a volatile region. President Truman recognized Israel just 11 minutes after its declaration. The State Department urged him not to, fearing backlash from Arab nations. They argued it would alienate oil-rich Arab nations. But Truman saw a moral imperative. Many Americans, especially the Jewish community, supported a Jewish state. Plus, Cold War politics played a role. The Soviet Union initially supported Israel. The US couldn't let the Soviets have all the influence. Thus began a complex US-Israel relationship. Now, fast forward to the 1960s and the Cold War is in full swing. The US and the Soviet Union are locked in this ideological deathmatch, vying for global dominance, and the Middle East becomes this giant chessboard. Israel, with its strategic location and burgeoning military might, starts looking pretty damn appealing to the US. They were like the scrappy underdog, always punching above their weight class, and America loves a good underdog story, almost as much as they love military hardware. So the US starts showering Israel with weapons and aid, transforming them into a regional powerhouse. Then comes the 1967 Six-Day War, where Israel, facing an existential threat from its neighbors, unleashes a military beatdown of epic proportions. They say victory has 1,000 fathers, and the US, basking in the reflected glory of Israel's triumph, was more than happy to claim paternity. This war cemented Israel's image as a capable and reliable ally, a bulwark against Soviet influence in the region. But it also laid the groundwork for future conflicts and deepened the complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, something we're still dealing with today. Chapter 4. From Aid to Allies, the Unbreakable Bond of Weapons and Whispers. The 1970s and 80s saw the US-Israel relationship go from a casual fling to a full-blown shotgun wedding. Military aid continued to flow, intelligence sharing reached new heights, and the two countries became joined at the hip, diplomatically speaking. Israel proved its worth as a strategic asset during the Yom Kippur War in 1973, providing the US with valuable intelligence on Soviet military capabilities. Think of it like that friend who always lets you borrow their notes, except in this case, the notes were about how to defeat a superpower. This era also saw the rise of powerful pro-Israel lobbying groups in the US, ensuring that supporting Israel remained a top foreign policy priority. These groups weren't just whispering in the ears of politicians, they were practically renting out their ear canals. But it wasn't just about politics and military strategy. There was a genuine sense of camaraderie developing between the two nations, a shared sense of purpose in a world that often felt hostile and unpredictable. They were like that couple who finishes each other's sentences, except their sentences involved things like missile defense systems and regional stability. Chapter 5. God's Chosen Country, How American Evangelicals Found Their Promised Land in Israel. Now, no discussion of the U.S. Israel relationship would be complete without mentioning the elephant in the room, or rather the elephant in the Holy Land, the influence of American evangelical Christians. For many evangelicals, the creation of Israel wasn't just some geopolitical event, it was the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, a sign that the second coming was just around the corner, and they weren't shy about making their views known. They became some of the most vocal and dedicated supporters of Israel, lobbying for its interests, donating generously to pro-Israel causes, and generally treating the whole country like it was a divinely ordained theme park. This unwavering support, while well-intentioned, added another layer of complexity to the U.S. Israel relationship. It blurred the lines between foreign policy and religious belief, making it even more difficult to have nuanced conversations about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But hey, who needs nuance when you've got the Book of Revelation, right? Chapter 6. Throughout the decades, the U.S. has played the role of mediator in the seemingly never-ending quest for peace in the Middle East. They've hosted peace talks, brokered agreements, and generally tried to herd these two cats, Israel and Palestine, towards some semblance of coexistence. Think of it like trying to get a dog and a squirrel to share a picnic basket. It's not easy, and there's bound to be some bloodshed along the way. There have been moments of hope, like the Camp David Accords in 1978, where Egypt and Israel signed a peace treaty, proving that miracles can happen, even in the Middle East. But for every step forward, there seemed to be 2 steps back, with violence erupting, negotiations collapsing, and both sides accusing the U.S. of being biased. The U.S. found itself in an impossible position, trying to balance its unwavering support for Israel with the need to broker a peace deal that would require concessions from both sides. It's like trying to juggle chainsaws while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. Impressive, sure, but ultimately doomed to fail. Chapter 7. The end of the Cold War didn't exactly usher in an era of peace and love, especially in the Middle East. The U.S.-Israel relationship continued to evolve, shaped by new threats, shifting alliances, and the never-ending drama of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The 9/11 attacks had a profound impact, strengthening the bond between the two countries as they faced the shared threat of terrorism. George W. Bush, with his "you're either with us or against us" mentality, embraced Israel as a key ally in the war on terror. Obama, on the other hand, tried to adopt a more balanced approach, emphasizing the need for a two-state solution and occasionally bumping heads with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Trump? Well, he threw a grenade into the whole thing, moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, much to the delight of Israel and the consternation of pretty much everyone else. And now we have Biden, trying to navigate this minefield with the grace of a unicyclist on an ice rink. It's a work in progress, to say the least. Chapter 8. So, where do we stand today? The U.S. continues to be Israel's biggest benefactor, providing billions in military aid every year, enough to buy every American a falafel pita with hummus and pickles. But who needs affordable healthcare when you can have fighter jets? Beyond dollars, the U.S. and Israel collaborate on intelligence, cybersecurity, and defense. They're like tech geeks building weapons systems. The relationship has its critics. Some argue the U.S. is too beholden to Israel, ignoring its treatment of Palestinians. Others say the alliance is vital for U.S. interests and shared values. Whatever your stance, the U.S.-Israel relationship is one of the most consequential and complex in the world. It's a relationship that has shaped the Middle East and continues to spark debate. And it's a story that's far from over. So, there you have it. The roller coaster ride that is the U.S.-Israel relationship. It's a story of shared values, strategic interests, religious fervor, and enough political intrigue to make your head spin. And like any good relationship, it's had its ups and downs, its moments of tenderness, and its explosive arguments. Where will this unlikely alliance go from here? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, it's a relationship that will continue to shape the world we live in, for better or for worse. To dive deeper into this fascinating history, hit that subscribe button, share with your friends, and tap the bell to stay updated. Your support means everything. Let's spread the knowledge.